PUBG Mobile adding new servers in update 3.0. 3.0 is already a pretty big update. I don't think it's the most groundbreaking thing we've ever seen in the game to come to the game, but we are getting things like Gulag getting added, a really big buff. They really want people to start using sniper rifles again. We also have clones and some other features. We don't have the official patch notes released yet. That's very crucial. As we're going into this video, nothing has officially been announced as far as patch notes go. Having said that, there's a huge rumor that new servers are going to be coming to the game. All right, specifically the Africa server. When we talk about the Africa server, that also makes me think of the Oceania server, which is very popular in a lot of other BR games and FPS games. Is Oceania has their own server, New Zealand, Australia. The question is Africa server going to be dropping here in the 3.0 update? Let me go ahead and show you guys how the rumor first even started, okay? And as you guys saw in the intro, I've been getting hit up on every single platform, every single day in the comments. Scroll up, you can scroll for yourself and find them. Hundreds and hundreds of people asking about the Africa server, and this is the reason why right here. All right, this is what we're going to discuss. All right, so this showed up right here. This is actually, and this is not edited. I know we get a lot of fake edits, debunks. We just did one on Erangel. The freaking fake UC accounts that you see. This is actually real. This was in game. It literally says, they're not even trying to hide it. It literally says Africa server celebration. And it was going from November 20th to December 5th. And this is what got, everybody, all riled up, was this right here, this showing up in game. So we're going to break everything that we know. And is Africa going to get their own server? And if they do, will a server come for Oceania? And what the good things are that can come with new servers being added, as well as the bad. All right, so this is actually a great blueprint going forward, not only for Africa server, but like I said, for a server like Oceania. All right, which a lot of people have been pushing. PUBG Mobile is very popular in both parts of the world. Okay, so it says it is no news that we want good servers in Africa. Finally, PUBG came through with this great news about the release of a server in Africa. All right, which is located in the sub-Sahara Africa region. There was a server added in South Africa specifically, where everybody in South Africa is getting 20 ms. Everybody in North Africa, again, very similar to, not similar regions, they're totally different, but very similar ping that each region is playing on. North and West Africa playing around 120 to 200 ms, and that's basically what people like say in Australia are playing on. It says the drop down server for Africa is not visible yet, just to avoid empty lobbies and long matching times. Okay, this is the most crucial thing right here. This is the bad part. When you add a server to the game, they have to make sure there's enough players in the region to support having their own specific drop down. For example, North America has their own drop down. Of course, Europe, I think Europe and Asia, the Europe server's bigger than the Asia server, only because there's also a KRJP. Of course, Korea and Japan have their own server, which is not lumped into the Asia server. They're completely separate. And the newest server, believe it or not, that was added to the game, if my notes serve me correctly, back in 2019. That was the Middle East server, also a very large region, very, very popular region playing PUBG Mobile, okay? So when it comes to the drop downs, it'd be nice, of course, for every single region on planet Earth to have their own server. The problem is, again, on paper versus in practice. That's the issue here. Will there be enough players in North and West Africa to support their own server, to include Oceania? Are there enough players playing the game in Oceania, like Australia and New Zealand, to support their own standalone server with their own drop down, which would mean their own leaderboards and their own matches. That would be that's the biggest issue. In my humble opinion, if there were enough players to support those regions independently, I don't see why PUBG Mobile would not put servers in those locations, because not only would it just be overall awesome for the player base, for the players playing in those regions, but also for things like esports, which obviously makes the company a lot of money. So if in Oceania, let's say you have 50,000 people, that are playing at any given time, all throughout the day, how long will the queue times be? Because if the queue times are too long, what's going to happen? People are in those regions are going to think that it's a dead game. They have no way to select another region without completely switching over. And now you just have a lot of upset players that don't even want to play the game anymore. They're going to think it's a dead game because in their region, they're not able to get into matches. That's the issue. But there is a workaround of this whole thing, and it's this line right here. It says the way this works is like this: when enough Africa PUBG Mobile players are in the European server and you start a game, you will be matched with local players and automatically you will end up in the Africa server. Likewise, if the African players, if there's not enough people, you'll be routed back to the European server, basically acting as a failsafe. And I think this would be great to implement in both regions, in Africa as well as Oceania, if they could pull something like this off logistically, where if you try to get into a match, let's say you reach a certain threshold, let's say it's 2, maybe 3 minutes, where there's not enough players in your specific region trying to get into a match, it will automatically route you back to a much larger server. Let's say in Australia, a lot of people play on the Asia server. It's really not that far away. Same thing in Africa, people are playing on the European server. So it'd be a quick way. So if you're playing like at peak times in your region, there'd be no issue with you getting into a match and having low ping. Now, some of the big benefits that I want to cover is returning and introducing new players to the game in these regions. So you have a lot of players that basically would just get fed up over time, playing on 200, playing on 300 MS. And what do? They drop the game and they'll pick up a game that's going to have better ping for them wanting to play online against real players. So introducing something like an Africa server or something like an Oceania server, all the players that had left when news like this broke out, what's the first thing these people are going to do when they find out that their favorite game they can now play rocking 20 or 40 MS? They're going to come back to the game. And when that happens, you'll also have a huge flood of new players from those regions who will also potentially pick up the game, download it, and begin playing and filling up those lobbies even quicker. Question, again, none of these numbers are public to anybody. But when we're talking about disadvantages, one thing that we haven't discussed yet is what will this do to something like the EU server? All right, EU server, like I said, if I'm not again, we don't have any actual raw numbers, but if EU's the biggest server, how many of the players in Europe are actually playing from Africa and West Africa? To include Oceania, how many players from Oceania are filling up the Asia server? What will this do to those servers? Will there be enough players leaving to go to their own home servers? Will Europe and Asia crumble? Will they not even notice a difference at all? These are just all hypotheticals. There's no way to really... The only people that know the answers to these more in-depth questions or topics would be Tencent. They're the only ones that would actually have these raw numbers. They don't want these numbers public. That's why you can't find them anywhere. So I'm very curious to get your guys' thoughts, man. What do you think? Why, when they're talking about Africa server celebration, were they referring to the South Africa server that's already in existence? Because remember, if you're playing in South Africa, you got 20 MS already. They just don't have their own drop down. There's no drop down menu for it. So I find it odd. And if they did, if they were celebrating an Africa server, why didn't they specify the South African server celebration? Very interesting how they word that. The fact they put that little teaser in game, don't really know what was happening there. I mean, at the end of the day, you guys, I mean, your guess is as good as mine, but I'd love to get your guys' feedback. What do you guys think, man? Have we heard everything there is to know about update 3.0? Is there something else around the corner? We're gonna have to wait and see.